dispute.
Number one whenever news breaks during your day.
And number one whenever and wherever you want to talk sports.
Now it's time for Monty in the Morning.
Hey, yo, man. How the heck are you? It is Tuesday, July 6th, 2021. Hi, Jake.
Hello.
How are you?
Just phenomenal. How are you?
Great. We have a lot to get to. Obviously, the NBA Finals tip off tonight in Phoenix. Will Giannis play? And can the Bucks win a championship without him? We'll talk about that coming up as well. We have got to talk about the new Traeger Ironwood 8500. Is it 850? 850.
850.
Ironwood 850. Oh, man, that thing's a rocket ship. Got to say, I'm pretty happy with the first brisket.
It was pretty good.
Yeah, we'll tell you all about that. Mike Lindell has set a date for Donald Trump to retake the White House.
Donnie.
I mean, that's going to be a national holiday, right?
Apparently.
That's what that first one is. I mean, Donald Trump's coming back. Let's all celebrate. We'll tell you the date on that. Stop. Like, it's my pillow crazy guy that is the issue in this country.
Mm-hmm.
I am convinced of that.
Yeah, and he's literally, he has no political standing. He's literally a CEO of a company and
has no evidence. No,
like
save it. Your Donald Trump machinations are not welcome at this time.
I know.
Okay?
Yeah.
We'll talk about that, but Avi, we got to start with Tony Jones pissing everybody off. Tony Jones from The Athletic. The only reason I subscribe to The Athletic is to read Tony Jones's NBA and Jazz coverage. It is worth every penny. He wrote an article over the weekend where he cited sources inside the Utah Jazz that said that they are prioritizing and will do everything they can do to bring back Mike Conley. And my first reaction to that is, okay, and then what? Because if you bring back Mike Conley, it's going to cost you north of $20 million, would be my guess, because he's going to have multiple offers or multiple suitors at least. And my guess is that you're going to see that's going to drive the price up like he's a house in good old Holiday, Utah for sale. And they are going to battle tooth and nail to try and keep him. And remember that the Jazz have bird rights on Mike Conley, so they can resign him and match any offer that he gets. And they will still have to pay the luxury tax to do that. And Jake, I think it's a huge mistake.
Yeah, I just think that once again, I think you're going all out to re-sign a guy who wasn't there in the biggest moments. And the biggest thing that I disagree with, from the article about the sources was that, the sources are saying that the Jazz feel like or believe that Mike Conley is worth the risk in terms of injuries versus what you're paying him. And that's just something that I just can't get down with if it was me. That's just something that I disagree with mentality-wise. I think that the Jazz with with the guys that they already have on the roster, with the shooting and the way they're currently constructed, they don't need to have some Lamborghini of a point guard. All they really need is someone who can bring the ball up and can distribute a little bit to get the offense going. Now, the nice thing is, for the pro Mike Conley people, the advantage of re-signing Mike Conley is, yes, he is elite when he's on the floor in terms of distributing, getting guys in the right position, feeding Rudy. Like, he does a lot of great things for you. The issue is that he's not available to you in the biggest games that you have. So I just can't get down with the idea that you're not only going to probably overpay him a little bit because of the competition.
Probably.
Yeah, I mean, it's most likely that you're going to overpay him.
You will overpay him.
Okay, you'll overpay him, and at the end of the day, you're overpaying a guy who is going to be hurt. That's just going to happen, and I don't think if you're a Jazz fan, you should be surprised when it does happen.
Well, how do you not overpay him? I mean, what is Mike Conley's value? And we've talked about this for several weeks now. That Mike Conley was part of the problem this year in that he did not stay healthy. And when you look at Mike and you look at his money, I mean, this is a guy that's probably going to command, I would say, $20 million on the open market. And with all due respect to Tony Jones, I just don't think this is a new story. We've talked about this for the better part of the entire offseason so far. I think the Jazz are getting their front office in order. We have 3 weeks until NBA free agency opens on August 2nd. And I think the Jazz are going to have to pay a pretty price to bring him back. I think we've made it pretty clear. I think we believe they'll bring him back, and I think it's a mistake. I think if Mike Conley wants to come back and play in Utah, and he's willing to do that for $10 to $12 million, there's no way he's doing that, then fine, let's do it. For $20 million on a 2-year deal, I want nothing to do with that. And I know that we've talked ad nauseum about Mike Conley, and all of a sudden the headlines put Mike Conley back at the top of the news stack, and I guess I understand that. You got to make yourself pretty clear on where you are as a Utah Jazz franchise. And right now, if you are paying Mike Conley and you are going over the luxury tax to do it, you are not going to be able to improve the rest of this roster, because Tony Jones reported exactly what Jake and I told you 2 weeks ago now, that the Jazz think that this core is good enough to contend for a title. And I'm here to break the news to you that it's not. I think if we learned anything about this team, is that when you rely on guys who are always hurt, those guys are always going to be hurt and you're going to fail. And I think when you put $20 million in front of Mike Conley for the next 2 years, so probably a total of 40, you put that kind of money in front of Mike Conley, you're not going to win a championship, because Mike Conley will not stay healthy. And again, I will say, the best indicator of future activity is your previous activity. And Mike Conley is always hurt. And I think that when you see that Mike was hurt going back to that Minnesota back-to-back late in the season, I don't think he ever fully recovered from that. I think he got hurt at the end of the Memphis series, and he never really played again. And I think you're going to be Donovan Mitchell and everybody else, because at the end of the day, and this is something Tony Jones wrote about as well, I completely disagree, by the way, but at the end of the day, most people believe that if Mike Conley was healthy, the Jazz would have won the Clippers series. That does not change the fact that Donovan Mitchell was not healthy. And, I mean, we could focus on Mike Conley all day if you want. But, Jake, I'm telling you, Mike Conley being healthy doesn't change the fact that Donovan Mitchell had a severely injured ankle.
Yeah, and I think, if you look at injuries for this team, it's always going to be, whether we're talking about Mike or Don or anybody else on the roster. I mean, even with Bogey. I mean, we've had the injury discussion with Bogey as well, not just the ankle, but the fact that he was playing with his right wrist a lot, and so injuries on this roster aren't unique to Mike Conley, and I think that what really needs to be said here is that this roster, unfortunately, is once again not athletic enough and not deep enough to absorb those kind of injuries. You look at what the Clippers were able to do without Kawhi Leonard. I mean, you're talking about losing one of your superstars, frankly one of the best players in the league by anybody's metric. He's one of the best players in the league. You lost him, and you still won the series, and that to me, for me, is what's hard to swallow here. Like, okay, I get it. You like Mike Conley. I understand that. But the thing that I really struggle with is, even if you went and re-signed him, even if you did get him, even if you beat all the other people who are going to be trying to get Mike Conley, at the end of the day, this coming season, not only are you going to be paying a lot of luxury tax to do it, you're not going to have gotten any deeper. Okay, so you do go and sign Mike Conley. Then what is next? Like, what? So are you going to go, like in Tony Jones's article, thought he made a great point, talking about going and getting guys like Raul Neto and Jeff Teague to kind of backstock. Those are names that you could potentially go and chase on really cheap deals. But at the end of the day, I just still maintain, even if you were 100% healthy, doesn't change the fact that Rudy disappears in the middle of games. Like, you just go away from that. It doesn't change the fact that your reliance on 40 to 50 threes a game comes back to get you in the postseason.
Well, and I also think you're well aware at this point, I would hope, that you're just not athletic enough to compete at the top of this conference. I mean, if you get down to brass tacks on what happened in the Clippers series, you lost to the LA Clippers, who were without their best player in Kawhi Leonard, and Paul George, who had been, I think it's light to say maligned during the Dallas series, came in and did what he needed to do. You couldn't guard Reggie Jackson. I think you really struggled with bigs in that series. And frankly, you had no answer for how the Clippers defended you. And with Don on a questionable ankle, again, I just don't think Mike Conley's enough there, because I think the Clippers have enough athleticism to handle Mike Conley. I think if you look at the way the guards played in this series, Certainly Patrick Beverley's a guy that you would think would wind up, spending a lot of minutes standing in front of Mike Conley in a Jazz series. I think you look at the way that the Jazz lost. They lost because they were not consistently good at anything in that Clippers series. And a lot of that is because, that first half where they shot the lights out and Bogey goes, 6 of 7 from 3, and then really isn't a factor the rest of the game. That's who this Jazz team was in the playoffs. And it's cool that you beat Memphis. That's a really good accomplishment. You didn't get knocked out in the first round. There's no doubt that this was growth. This season was good. It was not great, and you need to do better. And I don't see how you do better by paying Mike Conley $20 million a season for the next, at a minimum, 2 years. I don't. And frankly, I put a lot more credence into Instagram posts by the wives of players than most people do. I think Mike Conley thinks he's going to play somewhere else next year because he's going to get a gigantic offer from some fool in the NBA. Somebody is going to pay him. And I'm hoping that the Jazz are not that team that ponies up a max contract match for Mike Conley, because I think there's a chance that he gets overpaid. Somebody will overpay to compete for him, and it'll be really interesting to see who that is, Jake, because I don't think it can be the Jazz. Yeah. I mean, there's going to come a pain point where the Jazz are going to say, no, we can't do that.
There has to be there's that point on almost every player, and I think for Conley, it's if you're the Jazz, I mean, again, I'm not probably willing to pay Mike Conley more than 16 is probably the line for me. I don't want to be approaching 20 for Mike Conley, anywhere near that. And I think the other thing that nobody is talking about is the fact that this coming season, the West is going to be better than it was this past season. So firstly, I want to say that I don't think the Jazz were certainly lucky to get to where they got, right? They earned that. They played great basketball. They earned the number 1 seed. Injuries are injuries, and everybody deals with them. But I think, on that flip side, again, you're going to have much healthier versions of the Western Conference powers coming back this season. So, when I look at, again, the Lakers, when I look at the Warriors, I see these rumors about Ben Simmons to the Warriors floating around. I see Klay Thompson coming back. Again, Kawhi Leonard's going to be back for the Clippers. You look at all these teams, and you can start to see how the West is just getting deeper and deeper and deeper. Jamal Murray is going to be back for the Nuggets. So
don't forget the main rumor that came out over the weekend, by the way, is DeMar DeRozan to the Lakers. If they sign and trade, which is what and I don't know how many people saw it, but there was a rumor over the weekend that the Lakers were willing to sign and trade Kyle Kuzma in a deal for DeMar DeRozan. So they would, essentially sign DeMar DeRozan and then trade for him from San Antonio in exchange for a package including Kyle Kuzma. That's a huge upgrade for the Lakers. And there's no reason that the San Antonio Spurs wouldn't want to do that. I mean, they're going to lose DeMar DeRozan. I think everybody recognizes that. If you can get an asset and picks in return, why wouldn't you do that? Mm-hmm. Right? So why wouldn't the Lakers do that deal? Well, they would. They need a third scorer. And they found that out the hard way. They're going to do something like that. I think your point is really well taken that the West is going to get better. I don't know what the Clippers do with Kawhi Leonard, because I actually don't think it's a slam dunk he ends up there. I think it's, if you're putting percentages on it, sure, I think it's more likely he stays in L.A. than leaves L.A. Mm-hmm. But I don't think it's a slam dunk he winds up with the Clippers. I think the Clippers are going to get better. I don't think there's any doubt about that. The Lakers will be better. Phoenix will be better. Every player on that Phoenix roster, especially the young bigs, the young wings, they're all going to be better for having gone through this playoff run in this NBA Finals series. So you have to think they're going to be better. Dallas is going to be better. Dallas is a team that is said to be in the Mike Conley Derby.
Yeah.
There are a lot of teams that are going to be better in the West, and the Jazz, frankly, are not going to be better. They're going to be who they are. Because if Tony Jones is right, and usually
Most
Tony Jones is right? I mean,
most times he is.
He is the best Jazz guy in the market for a reason. Tony knows what he's talking about. And if Tony's right, the Jazz are going to come back largely intact. And I think that's going to be a mistake, because you are going to be, and I will say what I've said for weeks now, if you do anything to damage next offseason, a year from now, if you do anything to damage the flexibility that you have built or that you currently have existing, a year from now, you're making a mistake.
What do you think? Let's say that they somehow, some way, let's just say that they do bring Mike back. They're largely the same team. What do you think for Don the situation is if you're him? How long do they have to fool around not winning? Because I think that the Donovan Mitchell clock is ticking. I look at the situation in Portland with Dame. I think players are learning from that situation.
Yes.
There was a lot of conversation about, hey, how long have we been having the conversation just between you and me? Hey, how long is Dame going to sit there in Portland and not win a championship?
Years.
How long is dude going to sit there, work his ass off, be the guy, and not win? It's been, what 4 or 5 years at least? That's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of games on your legs. So if you're Donovan Mitchell, you're watching, again, as you said last week, Dame and Bron, quote unquote, dap it up at the WNBA game. You're sitting here looking at this roster and you're feeling like, damn, dude, I carried this team. And it's very clear to, at least from my eyes, hey, this is my opinion. I don't have facts behind this, but based on what he does on the floor, he does not trust his teammates, to the level that he needs to.
Donovan Mitchell.
Yeah, Donovan Mitchell. He doesn't trust them. And so I just look at this roster and I'm like, all right, cool, man. Go ahead, go after Mike Conley. But then next season, when we're talking about the fact that you flamed out again, and whether that's in the conference finals or the semis, at what point does Don talk about moving on?
Right, but the question is, what in the current situation, what problem does Mike Conley solve for you? Well, he's a point guard. Obviously, I think the thing that they missed most was facilitating for Rudy Gobert. I don't think there's any doubt that Conley and Gobert work very well together, and I think there's very little doubt, and I don't know that anybody really questions that when Mike Conley plays, Rudy Gobert's offensive role, his impact goes up because they have great chemistry. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But the bigger question to me is, what problem in the long term, for long-term prosperity, which is what most NBA franchises are looking for, what long-term problem does Mike Conley solve for you? And I really don't think he does solve a problem. He elongates the fact that, hey, you're paying a veteran who's injured all the time big money, and you can't count on him to be there in the playoffs. That's the issue. And I don't know that a $5.9 million taxpayer exemption is going to solve that issue. Because with all due respect, I think we all know who Raul Neto is. Mm-hmm. I think with all due respect, we know who Austin Rivers is. We know who, all the potential backup point guards are. We know who those guys are.
The Jeff Teagues.
And I like Jeff Teague, but Jeff Teague is not a guy that when the NBA Finals are on the line, or when you're down 3-2 to the Clippers, that I can say, okay, well, we've got Jeff Teague to step in because Mike's hurt.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the answer. And I will again maintain that Mike Conley, the best part about Mike Conley coming back is that it means Joe Ingles can be a forward. He can be a creator off the wing. And he can be a spot-up three-point shooter, which is really what his highest best use is at this point in his career. The guy was out of gas. He had nothing left at the end of the season for the playoffs because you asked him to do too much. So Mike Conley coming back does help Joe Ingles. It does help Rudy Gobert. But that's only when he plays. And if Jeff Teague's here, sure, that keeps Ingles off the ball. But I maintain that you cannot, in my opinion, bring Mike Conley back at $20 million plus. And if teams like the Knicks, if teams like the Mavericks, if a championship tender comes calling, I think Mike Conley's going to have to listen quite intently.
Which they will. They will. You can expect that. They will.
I don't have any doubt about that. And I just feel like the Jazz are in a position where they're leveraged because they have mismanaged their cap. And they've spent on guys who have not been able to develop further past where they are. Most of this Jazz roster is at its ceiling.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at Ingles, Bogdanovich, I think this is who Rudy Gobert is until he shows us he's not. Until Rudy shows us that he can add a repertoire that includes back to the basket, the ability to put the ball on the floor a little bit, the ability to pass at an efficient, high level. This is Rudy Gobert's ceiling right now. And he's just starting that $200 million deal. So you've really invested in guys, in my opinion, who are at or near their ceiling. And that's always when you get into trouble.
Yeah.
So I think if you bring Mike Conley back, it landlocks you. Is really the bigger issue. And I think that it'll be interesting to see what happens. Let's get some comments in here because there's a lot of people on the show as usual. By the way, if you're here, please give us a thumbs up. We really appreciate obviously your ability to interact with the show is significant. You guys, your comments are always welcome on the show. A lot of people asking about how much we would pay Mike Conley.
Yeah,
I don't know what that number is.
I think we can. The fact is we can answer that question. So yeah, would I love to pay Mike like 10 to 12 a year? Yeah, of course I would. Absolutely. Like I think at 10 to 12 a year, Mike Conley is an amazing player, because at 10 to 12 a year, you can absorb his injuries because that allows you to go and sign other players. But the fact is that the market is not going to allow you to pay Mike Conley 10 to 12 a year. The only person that can allow you to pay Mike Conley 10 to 12 a year is Mike Conley. If he was willing to take a hometown discount, which he's not, but if he was willing to, we'd be having a different conversation. But again, NBA players are not dumb. They are there. They are playing and working their careers for their own well-being, for themselves and for their family. They want to make as much money as possible, and I don't have a problem with that, frankly. I don't. Like, what do you get to play? Most guys play in the NBA for like 5 to 7 seasons, maybe, like if they're lucky. Make as much money as you can. And then you've got the Mike Conleys of the world who are living on, this sort of, I don't even know what you want to call it other than to say, hey, yeah, when he's playing, he's really good. He can really produce. Well, I got news for you. He doesn't play a lot. So how much would I pay Mike Conley? I wouldn't pay Mike Conley. I wouldn't bring him back, right? Because you're not, he doesn't do enough for you. What I would do is I would take Mike Conley's money and I'd move it into hopefully 2 players that you can work on a rotational basis, depending on who you're playing and what you really need to deepen your roster. Because at this point, again, you just don't have anybody behind Mike Conley. That's why the Joe Ingles thing happened. Oni is not going to back up Mike Conley. That's not who he is.
Well, and I think your biggest fear is where does Mike Conley go if he leaves? And I think...
Yeah, that's true.
I think that the likely destinations are either the LA clubs or Dallas. I think Mike's not going to go to Chicago, New Orleans. He's not going to go somewhere where he's not going to play meaningful basketball or have the opportunity to. And I think the thing that should really scare you is if he goes to the Lakers, they all of a sudden are a much better team.
And by the way, the Lakers would be a club where, okay, maybe now we can talk about taking a little bit less because I know that without a doubt I'm going to be playing for a championship.
Yeah, when you have LeBron and AD and when you think about the fact that Mike Conley brings elite three-point shooting, I think he is a massive upgrade over Dennis Schroeder. So my feeling is that, I think that's your biggest fear. If he ends up with the Clippers or with the Lakers, I think that's a nightmare for you because he's not going to go to a bottom feeder team. Like you hear all about the Chicago Bulls. Mike Conley's not going to the Chicago Bulls.
Yeah.
I would be shocked. That would be a cash grab. That'd be a bag grab if he did that. And I'd be really surprised by that. So,
and I think the other important small detail in this whole Mike Conley situation that you have to keep in mind is that they do have bird rights on him, which just basically means that they have the ability to match any offer that he's presented with. So they're going to have let's just say the Lakers called Mike Conley and said, hey, here's the deal we're willing to offer you. The Jazz are going to be able to put that on their desk and say, hey, are we willing to match this? Are we willing to, pay Mike Conley 23 a year or whatever, like some ridiculous number. So that's basically the situation they're in because they already know what they're going to offer Mike. Like that's already on Mike's lap, I'm assuming. Like they've already had that conversation. Now it's just about, okay, well, what kind of money can Conley go out and get?
By the way, Ace wants to know if you're serious about growing a neck beard.
No, I just haven't done anything about it, frankly.
How long do you let the beard grow?
Not much longer. Not much longer. I'm just not home that much on the weekends, frankly. I'm not home that much on the weekends, and so I just kind of go. Like
it is a bit of a neck beard.
Yeah, right now
I would agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. Life happens.
You probably ought to look at that. Driftwood says yes. Yes, they are. If Conley stays healthy and plays the way he did last year, I don't think if Mike Conley is 100% last year, they still don't win because Donovan Mitchell's not there. So, and this is that revisionist history we always talk about.
Mm-hmm.
If Bogey doesn't break his wrist, well, he did.
And that's what I'm saying. I just.
What are we talking about?
Again, we're right now, here today. We want to sit here and we want to say, okay, well, if he was healthy, they would have gone further. Okay, maybe that let's just agree on it. Let's just say, okay, maybe that is true. The problem is he's never healthy when you need him.
He wasn't.
Like that. Yeah. That's what I really struggle with Conley. You realize we're having a different conversation with Conley than we are with Gobert, right? At least with Rudy, he's on the floor and he's giving you the best minutes that he can possibly give you. Does he have flaws? Yes, absolutely. But he's out there working his ass off, giving you everything that he can give you as a big in this league. With Conley, he's not even on the floor. He tried to come back and play a few minutes. Those were not good minutes.
Yeah, he was a ghost.
So that's why I say that's why I really struggle with this whole Mike Conley concept. Let his ass walk.
Yeah.
Let him go.
Yeah, and I think it's hard for Jazz fans to come to terms with that. That's a huge change for this organization. Jeremy Bolton, good morning to you. I think the advantage to having Conley was seen against the Clippers, but I agree he needs to be healthy. Red Heart Norvis says Jazz are a contender with Mike Conley if he's healthy.
They're a contender without him.
Jazz should watch more FIBA games to scout a cheap point guard that can facilitate and a power forward that can score. Yeah, I'm not so interested in FIBA guys. Brandon Whiteside says Tony Jones overrated Mike Conley. We made into an all-star. Then he didn't show up when the stage was set for an epic finals push. I'd rather have a sign and trade. I just think there's not many people that there's no advantage to the other side, right? Like sign and trades like the DeMar DeRozan to the Lakers. Makes a ton of sense, right? The Lakers need a guy. The Spurs are rebuilding. They need picks and young talent. Makes perfect sense. Okay, so Mike Conley, what's the win for both sides here? Well, the Jazz don't lose everything when they trade Mike Conley. Well, who are you going to get in return? Because Mike Conley's contract's not going to be $5 million. Mike Conley is going to sign, let's say, a $20 million deal. The Jazz are in a position where they're over the cap, they're hard cap. So that trade becomes exponentially more difficult, right? And even if you go dollar for dollar, who's going to help the Jazz? And why would the Jazz help a contender? Because Mike Conley's not going to the Chicago Bulls. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. Are they going to sign and trade Mike Conley to the Clippers, the Lakers, the Dallas Mavericks? That doesn't make any sense, right? So you look at the teams in the East at the top of the table. Well, Milwaukee doesn't need a point guard. Brooklyn doesn't need a point guard. Atlanta doesn't need a point guard. There's not a whole lot of options to sign and trade Mike Conley. It doesn't make a lot of sense. I'll go to my grave saying that. There's just no reason for any other team to work with the Jazz on a sign and trade on Mike Conley, especially when they have bird rights to him. I mean, there's not a lot there. Dante May says, who are our backup point guards? Well, you really don't have one.
That's why I'm saying, let the guy walk, use that money, go get two of them, right? Because think about it. I mean, that's 18 to $20 million a year that you're not spending now on one player. So you can turn 18 to 20, you can turn that into two guys.
Yeah.
So you're changing.
But really, again, you're over the cap. You're paying the luxury tax. So even if you let him go, it just lowers your luxury tax bill. You essentially have $5.9 million to bolster your bench. So this idea, no matter what you do with Mike Conley, it's not about this year, it's about next year.
Yeah.
I'm just
Do
telling
you feel like anyone's talking about that? Because I don't feel like there's a lot of people talking about that.
I think all anybody cares about right now is that the Jazz keep their core intact so that they can be a contending team. So that when November, December, January, February, March roll around, the Jazz are winning the whole damn thing. 49,000 made threes last quarter. They made 86 threes in the second half. That's what it's going to be. If you keep this core intact, I'm telling you, just pull out your testicles and drive a roofing nail through them, because that's what it's going to be, man. Why would you think that you're going to improve when you've done nothing to change the roster? It's why Dennis Lindsey got fired.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, if you keep doing the same thing you've been doing, are you going to expect the same result, or are you going to think the result's not going to change? Because none of the variables have changed. All the dudes are the same, so the result's going to be the same.
Mm-hmm.
Don't expect to improve when you haven't improved at all. I mean, that's A plus B equals you're dumb. I mean, if that's what you think. Like, I'm sorry. James Knight says all teams get injured. Luck and timing plays a part. The Jazz should just beef up their bench. I think we've established that. Okay, so what does beef up your bench mean when you have a $5.9 million taxpayer exemption? One guy. Two guys for $2 million? Nah, that's probably not great. You're $2 million guys in this league?
Yeah.
I don't know who that is. Raul Neto.
Yeah.
Thank God we're saved. Right? I mean, are you serious? You can't unless you trade guys. I will continue to say this. You have two guys with trade value around the league. Bojan Bogdanović and Royce O'Neal. And neither one of them are world beaters, and neither one of them are irreplaceable.
Yeah.
I don't. Why are you being loyal to these guys? Right?
I think that I agree with you. I think that, again, I know we keep referencing Tony's article, but it's only because he clearly, he has very reliable sources inside the organization. And I think in his article, he talks about how the organization believes that, this team is capable of winning a championship. And I think that comes from this idea that, hey, if, Mike hadn't gotten hurt, hey, if Don hadn't gotten hurt, we'd be in a different position. And it's like, all right, well, yeah, sure. Again, to James's point, injuries happen to every team. The difference is that some teams have the ability to absorb those injuries and still play really good basketball.
And who knew the extent of Donovan Mitchell's ankle injury? Like, I don't, at the end of that clip, the last, the final game in LA, the game 6, he just was not capable. I mean, nobody knew that was going to be the situation with his ankle. I mean, we even talked about it on the show. I felt like the Jazz were so capable of winning that series until he walked out there limping and shooting air balls repeatedly. Like, I mean, who knew that Donovan Mitchell was going to be in that position? If Mike Conley had been healthy, you just shouldn't put those words out, because he wasn't, and he never has been.
And at some point, it becomes a fool me once, fool me twice situation.
Yeah, I just don't get it. Driftwood says Monty predicted the Jazz would close out the Clippers even without Conley. But again, who knew that Donovan was going to be playing on one foot? I mean, like, of course they weren't good against the Clips. Their two best all-star players were injured. Who isn't overpaid in the NBA? Right, but the issue isn't overpaying Mike Conley.
Rudy Gobert is overpaid in the NBA, and that's why their team is in the situation they're in.
Right, but I think a lot of guys are overpaid. But you're trying to compare it to like a construction worker or minimum wage, and the NBA salaries are not real world. It's fantasy land, right? And when you have a guy in Mike Conley and you pay him $20 million and you're paying double money. So you're paying him $80 million over 2 years because of the luxury tax? The good news is you're not going to be a repeater. You're not having paid the tax in the past. But, I mean, my God, you just don't have – you have zero flexibility. The idea of just stocking your bench or signing and trading, like, those things are incredibly difficult to do in this situation.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just incredibly difficult to do.
Yeah.
Brandon Whiteside says, funny thing about Tony Jones is he writes an article on that, and that the Jazz fans stand around and pat him on the back, slobbering over a single writer like he's a Pulitzer Prize winner. I don't get it. Tony Jones is a very good, very good NBA writer.
You're not going to be able to sit here and, again, we have no affiliation with Tony other than, he covers the Jazz, we cover the Jazz.
And we're better basketball players than he is.
Yeah, I mean, obviously. I mean, you ask him, he'll even tell you that, obviously. Anyway, point is that, you're not, I'm just telling you now, you're not going to be able to gain credibility by trying to run Tony's name through the mud or something. The guy, I agree, is the best guy in town covering the Jazz, and he's been very reliable in terms of like what the organization is thinking and like where they're at with things. I mean, he's been on point. So you're going to have to find examples or specifics on why exactly you think he's not good.
Yeah, I just don't. Yeah. Anyway, LVL 307, after a comment dump, says, hello from Manila. Any chance to onboard Lonzo Ball or Dinwiddie instead of Conley? They don't have the money. They don't. Jeremy Bolton says, do you think that Don has a say whether he wants Conley back? Oh, I'm sure he does. Driftwood says the front office is going to do whatever Mitchell wants them to do. So if they re-sign Conley, it's because Mitchell wants. Yeah, I don't know about all that. I think his input is significant, and I think they've shown that. Red Heart Norvis says Jazz should at least try to go for Lonzo, even though we know the Hornets are going to be a Ball family affair as LiAngelo looks to be signed by the Hornets. That's funny.
Jello.
Boo Case Bag says, how do you enter the giveaway? Well, all you have to do is hit subscribe, take a picture that you're subscribed, tag both The Monty Show, MONTY The Monty Show, and SLC Supercars on Twitter or Instagram in a photo of yourself subscribed, and you're entered to win. Let's see. James Knight says the hysteria you guys create on the Jazz is amusing. Injuries at the wrong time of the season affected their performance.
Dude, you're living in fantasy land, dog. Like, you're sitting here saying that we're creating hysteria. We've been talking about Mike Conley since the beginning of the season. We've been talking about the fact that he's going to get hurt. We predicted he was going to get hurt. What do you mean we're creating hysteria, dude? Like, this is not something where, we set it on a radio show and you can't go find it. Go find it on our channel. Go find it. Go watch the shows from way back when, at the beginning of the NBA season, when we told you that these injuries were coming. We straight up said that. So I disagree. I don't think we're creating hysteria. It's funny. We've been, again, I know we try not to do this, but when I get a comment like this, I can't help myself. Every time you want to say that we create hysteria, I'd like you to go back and check our track record on things that we've been wrong about on the Jazz. That, like, we've been pretty much nails on the Jazz on pretty much everything.
They need to remake the roster. They need, and listen, if you're married to Don, if you're married to Rudy and Bogey, okay, I'm good with that. I understand that. But the surrounding pieces, the Joe Ingles, the Jordan Clarkson, I guess, is fine. I mean, if you look at the surrounding cast, they were not an impact in the playoffs. And I think that Joe Ingles was just incredibly mismanaged because they had no other choice. They were leveraged because they have no flexibility. I think you have to fix that. I think you have to trade guys. You have to make very difficult decisions on guys that you can move to improve this roster because there's not a whole lot of ways to do that based on the draft history and the way that they've paid guys. You had no option but to, give Donovan Mitchell a Brinks truck, and there would be no reason not to. He's, in my opinion, he's on the verge of becoming an elite NBA player. But your issues around him are what you have to improve on. And again, if it's Bogey, Rudy, Don, okay, that's a fine three. But you still don't have a number two scorer because Bogey's not a number two guy. So at a minimum on this team, you need to go find a running mate for Donovan Mitchell, and you need to find a legitimate number two scorer. You've got to get more athletic on the wings, and you've got to be way better defensively. This team, there was this belief that the Utah Jazz were some elite defensive team, and I'm telling you they weren't.
No, they're not.
And Rudy Gobert cannot defend five guys on his own. He is a wonderful defensive player who is not responsible for everybody else's job. And at times, even Donovan Mitchell, I mean, just overreacting to ball movement, not being in the right place at the right time, not instinctually playing defense, losing, like if you look at Bogey's a try-hard guy who just doesn't have the ability to stand in front of somebody. Like he cannot keep a guy in front of him. That's the issue there. Nathan Johnson Vlog says, assuming we re-sign Conley, if he stayed healthy, would it be worth shopping him at the trade deadline. Well, it depends. Why would you sign him to trade him at the deadline? I don't know why you would do that. I mean, that doesn't make a lot of sense.
I see what you're trying to get at there, but in the real world with how the NBA works, that just, especially with the Jazz, they're not going to go and sign, Mike Conley just to trade him at the deadline.
And
that's just
the other issue is, remember, they don't have draft picks. They have they have their own every year. That's it. Like, they've traded so many. The Conley trade from Memphis just about gutted their ability to make trades with draft picks.
Yeah.
Because they just don't have it to trade. They don't have cash to send out or take in. And they really, or at least not much, and they really only have their taxpayer mid-level. So they're landlocked for a year. And that's why I said, be okay with not winning a championship this year so that you can win 3-10, so that you can win championships down the road. That's the all successful teams end up in this spot, usually after they've won championships, whether it's the Lakers, certainly the Golden State Warriors have found out that injury and salary cap hinder you, and they're working very diligently to remake some things. And I think that's what you have to do. Yep. Because when you don't draft well, it really handicaps you. And then you overspend and you handicap yourself further.
It's a vicious cycle.
It's miserable paying the tax. I mean, honest to goodness, it just eats you. You don't profit at that point. You are a losing organization at that point. So, anyway, here nor there. Ryan Buckley says, Jazz are dumb if they re-sign Conley. Brandon Whiteside says, if Conley walks, we can use his money. We can't use his money. We're over the cap. Exactly right. Eric and Raleigh says the NBA is not MLB. Trade deadline deals aren't realistic. Well, they're not realistic to win championships, right? Championship teams generally don't go out and make a transformative deal at the deadline. I mean, PJ Tucker was a nice pickup for Milwaukee. I mean, there's no doubt that his defense helped them in the Brooklyn series on Kevin Durant. But he's not the reason that they're in the NBA Finals. Now, health might be the reason that the Bucks don't win the championship. But, I mean, PJ Tucker, like the Holiday deal, that's why I think they're a much better team. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Ryan Buckley says plus minus is BS. Rudy got exposed by small ball. Stop being delusional. I think Rudy Gobert didn't get exposed by small ball. I think the rest of the Jazz roster got exposed by what the Clippers did. Rudy was asked to do things he's just not capable of. And I think until you recognize that, and until you understand that you don't have a matchup for Terrence Mann, you don't have a matchup for Reggie Jackson, you don't have a matchup for Paul George. Right? Like, who's the lockdown defender? It was supposed to be Joe Ingles and Playoff P, and Joe Ingles owns that ass.
He's in his head.
He went off against you. I mean, you don't have athleticism. So, yeah, is it true that Rudy Gobert's assignment did really well in the corner? Sure, but, to again point out something we've talked about for a long time, the game in LA against the Clippers, how did the Clippers win that game? Patrick Beverley switched to Rudy Gobert, and Pat Bev hit a three in the corner in the regular season. And we've been telling you that's exactly what the Clippers were going to do. They were going to switch guys, they were going to put a guard on Rudy, and they were going to leverage that matchup. And they pick and rolled the Jazz to death. The Jazz went to zone. Ball moved, dribble penetration, kick to the corner. Terrence Mann hitting tons of threes. By the way, as Jake likes to say, what else did Terrence Mann do? He dunked on Rudy Gobert.
Posterized.
I mean, it's not Rudy's fault that you're asking him to run out to the corner on an athletic young wing, follow him to the basket, and get dunked on. Who can stop that play?
Yeah.
I mean, it is not that Rudy Gobert is a plus-minus BS numbers lie guy. He's an elite defender, arguably the best defender in basketball. The problem is no big that's 7 feet can go to the corner and trail a guy to the basket. No big can have backside responsibilities with a three-point shooter in the corner.
Yeah.
It's just not going to work.
Yeah.
I mean, you're asking Joe Ingles to be a point guard.
Yes.
It's not going to work because Joe Ingles isn't a point guard.
And by the way, how long are you going to continue to do that with this roster and have the expectation you're going to win?
And Ryan, I don't think you're wrong. I think Rudy got exposed because the rest of the roster got exposed. They collapsed defensively. That's what happened. Jordan McDonald says, Jeremy Bolton, that's a nice stat, but he can't replace his regular season impact in the playoffs. Clippers shot 15-19 when they guarded Gobert with what an effing joke. Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I just think it's really difficult. You can't make excuses for what happened to this team. The guy who was at fault, Dennis Lindsey, and just saying, we talked about that for months. There's some comments about, how you have to replace the coach. I'm telling you, Quinn Snyder's not the issue with this team.
No.
He's not.
No.
I mean, it is very simply a matter of fact that they drafted very poorly for a decade. They drafted very poorly. Made some nice deals to get Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert on draft night. All right, cool, I'm good with that. But you missed out on some real superstar talent. And it's very difficult to get away from that in today's NBA. You look at the teams that are in the finals, and they got a lot of guys that they drafted or developed. And I think Giannis and Devin Booker are two great examples of that.
Yeah.
Giannis Antetokounmpo was a guy that a lot of people missed on. The Milwaukee Bucks did not. And I think you're seeing that they've developed him. Now he's a liability at the line, and now he's got this knee injury. But yeah, let's keep it real on that. You think the Jazz re-sign Niang? Stop. Look, we don't talk.
Listen, this is not a minivan show.
Ryan, I don't know. And Ryan, are you new? You might be. When you talk about and you say things that are hurtful, like re-sign Niang, those two words together, re-sign and Niang, we forbid them on this show. We ban that kind of conversation, Ryan, and we would appreciate it if you would follow the rules.
Yeah, we would.
Let's move on.
Okay. All right.
Gillert Gnick,
Good.
I don't know what you said, but your comment got banned, so I'm assuming it's not good.
Hey, any Grocock sightings yet?
No Grocock sightings today. Stop. Why bring that up?
Because.
Stop. Block Rush says Quinn Snyder got out coached, period. Okay, what should it... And this
I
is
love
the
this
game.
take. I love this.
This is the game. Well, Quinn Snyder sucks. He's stupid. What an idiot. Why didn't you even make an adjustment, dick? Okay, so what's the adjustment you want Quinn Snyder to make? Go ahead and please. And everybody, listen. Block, BLACC.
Mm-hmm.
Black Rush. I don't know how you pronounce that. Block Rush. The floor is yours. The show has been turned over to you so that we can see your chalkboard, or nowadays, your whiteboard, where we, the erasable ink thing, where we watch
dry
you
erase.
dry erase it up, man. Show us the adjustments that you as a coach schematically would have made, and what you would have done differently than Quinn Snyder. Hello? We're waiting. Yeah, I didn't think so. didn't think so. Eric Raleigh says the rest of the team can't magically become something they aren't. LOL. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Exactly right. Jordan McDonald says Jazz perimeter defense sucks for sure, but you can't win a title with a role player getting $40 million a year. Why are you stealing Jake's takes now?
Hey, man. I've been saying that since before the guy got paid.
That's exactly what Jake's opinion on Rudy Gobert has been for 3 years, that he's a role player. And look, I think he's more than a role player. I think he's the best defensive center in the NBA, certainly. There aren't a lot of true 7-footers that I would take over Rudy Gobert. Well, that's a lie. You got to be able to score the ball in this league.
Let's see. Joel, the Joker, DeAndre Ayton.
So you would take Ayton over Rudy Gobert. Man, that's close.
Yes, I would.
The Bahamian Behemoth is pretty good.
I'm sorry. Wait, what was that?
I just came up with a DeAndre Ayton nickname off the top of my head.
Okay.
DeAndre Ayton's pretty good, and he's not near his ceiling.
Yeah.
Defensively, he blows, but
he's not very good defensively. He struggles to catch the ball, but that jumper's pretty. and he's got a lot of offensive game.
Other than the fact he can't stop the other center and he can't catch the ball, DeAndre Ayton's a hell of a player. Let me tell you. I don't think he's better than Rudy Gobert. I think offensively he is.
Here's what I'll say: the better or not better discussion is always going to be there.
Oh God, here we go.
What?
Okay, look, block rush. We tried.
Oh boy.
Just take a guess at what you think his adjustment was.
Stepping into the passing lanes.
No, Ersan Ilyasova at the 5.
Whoever came up with that shit need to be fired.
Oh my God, Ersan Ilyasova.
Dude, are you being? Come on, seriously. I need another comment from you. Are you being serious with that take?
The big in-season acquisition, who they signed off the street, who Quinn Snyder didn't play for like 2 weeks.
We literally did have a conversation about when we were going to see Ersan.
The Ersan watch.
Yes.
I'm telling you right now, Ersan Ilyasova, decent defender, can shoot the 3. But what else do you want him to do? Like, if you look at who was he checking in the Clippers series? Do you think Ersan Ilyasova was going to be able to stay with Terrence Mann? Is that what you're asking for? Like, you're creating another problem by solving a problem that's not really solving the problem.
Yeah, are you going to put Ersan on Zubats?
But see, putting Ersan in doesn't solve the problem.
You have to be nice to stupid people.
Right? I mean, like, it doesn't solve the fucking problem, man. Like, with all due respect, if you take out Rudy, what happened? What do the Clippers do as soon as they take out Rudy Gobert?
For such a smart person, you really are lost, aren't you?
They attack the paint even more than they were. And you become a defensive liability because now all of a sudden it's all drive and kick. Right? And we saw the Clippers rotate the ball exceptionally well. Why did Derek Favors not play much in the Clippers series? Because he's Ersan Ilyasova, but better.
Whatever.
Ersan Ilyasova, stop it. Stop it. Jeremy Bolton makes a great point. Grocott stretches the floor well.
Yeah.
He's not a stretch. Oh, stop it. No, I'm not doing this. Put him on Batum.
Dude.
Put Ersan Ilyasova on Batum. Okay, then what? Nicholas Batum is not. See, I don't know how to explain this to you.
Oh, shit. Damn, I am tripping.
If you this is the last time I'm going to acknowledge Ersan Ilyasova ever. I'm just saying. If you put Ersan Ilyasova on Batum, what do the Clippers do? Do you think this through? I'm serious. When you come off of this drug-induced high of yours,
Cocaine and hookers, my friend.
ask yourself this question. If I take Ersan Ilyasova and I put him on Nicholas Batum, what are the Clippers going to do? Oh, nothing, because Tyronn Lue sucks. Well, what they're going to do is they're going to pick and roll the hell out of Ersan Ilyasova, which, by the way, who's their best pick and roll big? Nicholas Batum. So they're going to pick and roll him onto Reggie Jackson, onto Terrence Mann, onto Paul George, which is exactly the problem you already have, man. It doesn't solve that problem. It doesn't. And by the way, who did the Jazz use to guard Batum? Well, they used a combination of guys because they anticipated the switch, which is what NBA coaches do. I don't know, like Quinn Snyder. What they did is they used a myriad of guys, a multitude of guys. So Joe Ingles, you had Bogey, like you were switching regularly. The defensive breakdown came because Conley and Don were not healthy. They could not defend because Conley wasn't on the floor and Donovan Mitchell was playing on one leg. So if those two guys are healthy, they weren't, so let's just move on with our lives. Okay, I feel better. Man. I Block Rush says you make Ty Lue think and have to adjust. He adjusted all series long.
Wait.
Did you not see the zone?
Wasn't it weren't the Jazz up?
Man.
I distinctly remember a conversation about the Jazz being up 2-0 in this series.
Oh, it's over.
Jazz in 5, send me the Coke.
What?
Jazz
Somebody
in 5.
owed us something. Yeah, who was it? Jeremy Bolton, I think.
No, it was no. Cody Strickland.
Cody Strickland still owes us cocaine because he knows we don't drink soda. So I think it was cocaine.
Cocaine's a hell of a drug.
I mean, how many 12ers of 4X gold does James Knight owe us? At this point, it's a truck full.
Can I get a pallet, please? Can I get a couple of pallets of 4X gold? Listen, at the end of the day, no matter what you want to say, you can blame it on Quinn. You can blame it on Gobert. The fact is the roster is not stout enough to win a championship.
Thank you, Eric and Raleigh. All the Jazz can do is rearrange the deck chairs on the Titanic.
Yeah.
All right, who wins the NBA championship? Damn it, Block, why did you do this? Anyway, who wins the NBA championship?
I at this point I have to say the Suns because Giannis is I guess is it confirmed that he's out or is he still?
He's questionable.
He's questionable still. So I mean, I don't know. I just feel like the Suns are going to have to figure out, exactly what the Bucks are going to do defensively, in that first game. And if you look back at the regular season games between these two, they were very close. First one was a 1-point game that finished in regular time, and the second one was an overtime game. So the first game, Giannis had 47 points and 11 rebounds. He dominated the Suns, and the Suns still found a way to win. Second game, he didn't do as much, and the Suns won the game by 1 point. So either way, I think these games are going to be very, very close. But I think if Giannis does not play, and let's say that he misses... Let's just say he misses the first 2 games and the Suns are up 2-0. Then I think if you're the Bucks, you got to figure out what playing without Giannis looks like because he definitely provides them a lot of defense.
JL Banuelos.
Who the fuck are you?
Thanks for subscribing to the channel. He says the Jazz definitely need Conley back. Thank you. Also looking at the Giannis news. He is, again this morning, working out at a, quote, private gym to try and determine his ability to play tonight. That's 3 straight days he's worked out at a private gym.
What the hell does that even mean?
Why are you working? See, this is the stuff that I don't understand. Well, we can't have him work out in public because then people will see this leg fell off.
He, at this private gym workout, he was actually playing on one crutch as well, so we couldn't have people seeing that.
Now, granted, it was in his rectum, but it was a crutch. I saw it. The point is, I'm not buying that he's playing tonight. That hyperextension, if he didn't tear those ligaments, he had to have come close. He's got a severe knee strain at the very, very
gnarly.
best. And you can't tell me he's not going to have to wear a brace on that thing.
It's probably the issue. And this is what you're saying basically is that he definitely has a lot of swelling in it, and when you have swelling, your mobility goes down.
Yes,
so that's really going to hurt his athleticism, that explosiveness. That again the patented spin move that he always rolls out. That's going to not be available to him as much when he's got that kind of issue in his knee.
Stop it. Anyway, I'm not reading those comments. I'm not doing it. I like if Giannis doesn't play in this series, the Suns are going to win it. If Giannis plays, I think I would lean to the Bucks in a long one. I think this will be 6 or 7. I just think that the matchup when Giannis plays, I don't know how the Suns match up with him. I mean, Jay Crowder would be the obvious matchup, but Jay is always in so much foul trouble. I think if he's healthy, you're probably going to have to see Frank Kaminsky. Anytime that Frank Kaminsky comes on the floor, you're pretty much losing the game.
I actually think there's a chance that we see some DeAndre Ayton on Giannis.
How?
Because, dude, DeAndre Ayton is capable of staying with him. I'm not saying that he's going to make it so much that Giannis can't get to the basket. But what I am saying is that Ayton physically can stay with Giannis. Strength-wise, Giannis won't be able to just run him over like he runs everybody else over. So, and because Giannis does not have a reliable jumper, I think that I could potentially see the Suns trying to roll that out.
Yeah, but I think Giannis's best ability is his ability to get guys in foul trouble. And yes, he scores 30 a game. Yeah, he dunks on dudes. Good defender. Blah 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 blah. He gets your bigs in trouble. And when you foul out Jay Crowder or you foul out DeAndre Ayton, and really the bigger issue is if you have Giannis being checked by DeAndre, he's not going to give you much offensively. DeAndre is. So I think he's a really important player for them offensively. And I think, by the way, the other question is, okay, if you have DeAndre checking Brook Lopez, I mean, I don't know. Is Brook Lopez able to get by Giannis or able to get by DeAndre? Excuse me.
No,
I don't know. I think that's an interesting matchup there.
I think that's pretty even. I think the question for the Lopez situation, or I'm sorry. The question for the Bropez situation
thank you.
is is he knocking down the three? Because if he's able to pull DeAndre Ayton out of the paint, that obviously changes things. So at the end of the day, that's always going to be the question.
Yeah, and I think if you're being optimistic, I think Giannis misses the first couple of games here. He either plays in game 3 or game 4 at home. I don't know why you would risk it. I mean, you got to win your games at home.
Yeah.
And if you can rest him, even if you go down 0-2, we've seen this year that that's not a death knell.
Which is crazy. Like I was sitting here thinking, like, man, if this series goes 6 or 7, I mean, that just follows the suit of basically every other series outside of Jazz Memphis.
Yeah. So, by the way, there's quite a conversation in the DMs this morning.
Okay.
Why? With fading DM guy, this disappearing DM guy.
Vanish mode.
Thank you. Tyler. So Tyler's been gone for a while. And what he's been doing really is he's been DMing, and I haven't been reading his DMs. So,
and
should I read DM messages? And I think we should not.
Yeah,
if you
I don't
DM
think
me,
you
I'm
should.
not going to read them on the show.
Yeah, because it needs to be, court of public opinion.
Yeah, especially if you're being douche guy that sends me like vanishing messages.
Douche guy.
Get out of here.
Douche canoes.
Yeah, like if you're being a douche canoe and you send me a vanishing message thing, come on.
His standards don't matter.
Yeah, like get off of Snapface and get on to freaking YouTube. Let's go. And he YouTube comments a lot as well. Let's see. Jeremy Bolton says Bucks lose and that's Giannis's fault because he got injured. Yeah, what a dick. Eric and Raleigh says if Giannis even plays, just leave him alone at the 3-point line. Yeah, I think you back off of him, which we've seen. Jordan McDonald says Giannis will play in game 3. I would agree with that. James Knight says Grocock suffered serious swelling, kind of like Giannis in his knee.
If you felt these balls,
I mean, it'd be amazing. I think if Giannis doesn't play, I think the Suns win. Devin Booker, I think, it's
time. It is
the
time.
expectation, though, has to go up.
Yes.
I think he's performed really well. There is no Pat Bev on the Milwaukee Bucks, and you can't tell me that PJ Tucker stands in front of Devin Booker effectively.
Holiday is the guy. Holiday's the guy that can stay with him.
Well, then my question is, who's going to guard Chris Paul?
So they'll figure it out. I don't know.
Well, you're going to have to get a high level of defense out of Chris Middleton.
Yeah.
Because Chris Middleton's the guy that's going to have to check Devin Booker. Because, I mean, that's the obvious matchup to me. And I think Devin Booker has to give you more. Like, I'm not saying I've been disappointed with Devin because I think he's played really well in the playoffs. But there are times where in that Clippers series, and I think Patrick Beverley did a great job. But you have to find a way to get Pat Bev off of you, whether that's rub screens or pick and rolls or whatever. Your job is to score the ball. You are one of the best shooters in the NBA. You've got a deadly mid-range game. You got to get to that mid-range game, and I think at times Devin Booker didn't do that. And then when that series got tight, that's when we saw Devin Booker going to the basket. That's when we saw him playing tough physical basketball in the paint against the Clippers. And I think that you saw, especially in Game 7, Chris Paul was on a mission. So Devin Booker, I think, did the right thing and gave the ball up and moved the ball around. And that's why we saw his assist numbers go up. But Devin Booker, if the Suns are going to win this championship, has to truly, in my opinion, be the guy. Because I think Chris Paul's going to get his 20. Devin needs to have 30-point games on a pretty regular basis if they're going to beat the Bucks.
Agreed.
I think it's a huge deal.
I think for his legacy too. I think these are being that he's 24, which by the way is insane. He's only 24, but being that he's 24 and he's going to the NBA Finals and he's playing for a championship, I mean, these are, when you look back and you're, 35, 36, you're at the end of your career and you're kind of in that one last, run kind of mode, you're looking back and you're like, man, I was 24, I was feeling great, we were in the finals, and I didn't quite come up with it. Or yes, I did. I delivered, and I won that championship.
Well, think about LeBron.
Yeah.
Think about how many losses LeBron
example.
has.
Yeah.
I mean, so you can't give these away. I think Chris Paul is playing with absolute desperation.
It's different for him. Yeah, this is his last best chance.
I think it is. Block Rush says PJ Tucker going to lock Booker up. If Devin Booker gets locked up by PJ Tucker, they're
gonna try. I'm telling you, I legitimately think that they will try to put PJ on Book and see what happens. Obviously, they'll make adjustments if it doesn't work, but I think what everybody's saying is, hey, he did that to KD. Why can't he do it to Book?
Because KD's not a guy that's going to blow past you. I think Kevin Durant has to get past you with handles. Devin Booker is going by ones and twos with quickness. First steps, then he handles you and pulls up for that mid-range. And he's working in a hezzy, if anybody's noticed, and getting to the basket. Devin Booker, PJ Tucker's not fast. He's not quick. He is physical and he moves well. Devin Booker would handle PJ Tucker, and we'll see. It's one of the things I'm really interested tonight to see how much one-on-one does Chris Middleton get with Devin Booker. I think that's going to be a real critical matchup in this series because Book's defense has gotten much better, and it's effort and want to, and he's really done a nice job on the ball. So it'll be interesting to see. Chris Middleton's absolutely the pivotal figure for the Bucks. A lot of people put it on Giannis. I'm telling you, if the Bucks win a championship, it'll be because of Chris Middleton.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about that. Giannis is out. The knee is next season. Suns in 6, but I'm rooting for the Bucks just to make it fun and to make Monty slap his forehead. Okay. Block Rush says PJ's too physical for Booker. Well, physical is when Booker starts winning. I mean, how did he get over on Pat Bev? Well, Pat Bev, they pick and rolled Pat Bev off of him. And Patrick Beverley got frustrated. And PJ Tucker, we were talking about this in the amazing pre-show meeting.
Behind the scenes.
Off the air.
At our private gym like Giannis.
Yeah, in our private pre-show meeting studio, away from the cameras. Does PJ Tucker play 30 minutes a game in this series? That's a tough thing. Now, the one thing I think will be interesting is when PJ Tucker's on the floor and Brook Lopez is not. I think PJ Tucker winds up on DeAndre Ayton. I can see that a lot.
Yeah.
Because I think the Suns play quick, and I think that's going to give PJ Tucker some issues.
Yeah.
And I think that the Bucks have a quick package where it does not include Brook Lopez, or excuse me, Bropez. So it'll be interesting to see. Now, the other interesting thing is if Brook Lopez doesn't, have to play on the perimeter, if let's say Giannis doesn't play, Brook's on the block, and he was incredibly effective, but Atlanta does not have a presence in the paint.
Yeah.
Clint Capella cannot defend a guy like Bropez. I think DeAndre Ayton can handle Brook Lopez.
Yeah.
So I think that'd be mitigated a little bit, but what that also tells you is Chris Middleton's going to have 40 if Giannis doesn't play.
Yeah, and he's capable of doing that. I mean, we've seen that multiple times. So
Yeah.
it's not. I think that Middleton is more than happy to do that. It's just a matter of, again, it really just is a matter of, can the Drew Holidays of the world give you 20? Can he perform at a high enough level to offset what the Suns are doing? Because I think Paul is going to have 20 to 25 a night with 10 assists or more. That's where he's pretty much been every game that he's played. And I'd love to see Booker not get involved in the garbage in this series, and all that off the ball stuff, stay out of foul trouble. And I would love to see him kind of take that next sort of step from a dominance perspective. I'd like to see him consistently and reliably be around that 30-point number. I feel like sometimes he just sometimes has these off shooting nights. And I do think the other thing, too, that we have to talk about is the fact that he played with that broken nose. I really do think that affected him a lot. And so I would think that with all this rest he's getting, that is hopefully in a better spot.
By the way, this is totally off topic. I'm going to take Suns in 6, by the way. Did anybody notice Talon Horton-Tucker? The Chris Brickley videos of Talon Horton-Tucker working with J. Cole. We're seeing a lot more of those videos now. And Horton-Tucker's a guy that's been working with Lethal Shooter. And granted, he didn't have a great shooting year, but he's really working hard. I think he knows that he could get paid.
Yeah, well, I think he knows that he's right now today. He's a name that everyone's talking about, and I think he understands that he's going to come to an opportunity where he's going to get more consistent minutes, and he's got to come through in those minutes so that he can be paid. You know, and that's why some guys make it and some guys don't. I mean, the guys that want to work really hard like him are probably going to make it.
All right, can we move on to the non-sports portion of the program, please?
Sure. Yeah.
Do we start with Donald Trump or the Delta variant?
What about the Traeger, bro?
Traeger's at the end.
Oh, okay.
Look, man, the detail guy's going to be here in like 25 minutes.
Oh, well, sorry, I forgot. My bad.
Can we please move?
Yeah, hey, go ahead. It's your show. It's the Monty show, not the Jake show. Go ahead.
All right, let's start with the Donald Trump. I'm Mike Lindell, my pillow guy. Mike Lindell, the nut job, wing face douche guy.
Douche canoes.
The founder of My Pillow. You know that he's been talking about that Donald Trump is going to be reinstated and the communists are going to be removed from office. He says now he's put a date on it. He says that he's going to release all the evidence and the Supreme Court's going to have no choice but to act, and that Donald Trump will be reinstated on August 13th. 5 weeks from today. Now, he hasn't explained why August 13th. He has still shown zero evidence. And Mike Lindell is a big believer that the election was stolen. Here's all the evidence. He is not.
Buy My Pillow.
He said under his pillow, under My Pillow. His company is my. It's not my pillow. It's his pillow called My. And you get it. And with the point being,
wow.
Mike Lindell, My Pillow, has not shown any evidence that the election was stolen. He said that the Dominion, the voting system that he said changed all the votes, the case would be immediately summarily dismissed. It hasn't been. And Donald Trump is even laughing at My Pillow guy now, because even Donald Trump,
yeah, and again, it should be said that Donald Trump admitted he lost.
Yeah, and by the way, now they're talking about making him Speaker of the House. Like, this is where we're at. I am amazed that the Republican Party cannot move past Donald Trump right now. And I think, and I've said this before if you're new to the show, like, I was a Reagan Republican. Like, I voted Republican my entire life. And I can't vote for a Republican right now. Like, I think this incarnation of the Republican Party is absolutely insane. If you truly believe that Dominion voting machines change votes, you're an idiot. Like, you just haven't looked at the zero evidence that's been presented that ever happened. I mean, it has been widely investigated. It is, by the way, it is one of the most investigated accusations in the history of America. The conspiracy theory that Dominion voting machines change votes. Everybody has looked into it. Republicans, Democrats, your mom, everybody has looked into it. Lucas' hot mom has looked into it. And there's been zero evidence that Dominion voting machines change votes. None whatsoever. Yet Mike Lindell, My Pillow, continues to say, oh, they changed votes, and they didn't change votes. Donald Trump lost. He has admitted now that he's lost. The problem with Donald Trump being the Speaker of the House is that, and again, this is something that Donald Trump does not deny.
Right.
Being President of the United States allows you a lot of free time if you choose to take it. Being a state representative a congressman is work. Like it is a job. That's job.
Yeah, that's going to be job.
For those of you, Ursan Ilyasova guys, job spells job. Sorry, that was probably too much.
You have to be nice to stupid people.
Sorry, my bad. I forgot the golden rule. Be nice to stupid people. I'm kidding. Being a congressman's a job. So the idea that Donald Trump is going to get off the golf course to go be a congressman so he can be Speaker of the House, and then have you heard this theory? Okay, so Matt Gaetz, the congressman from Florida, is the one who's saying this.
Okay.
So it should have zero credibility. Matt Gaetz says that they're going to make Donald Trump Speaker of the House by getting him elected next year to the House of Representatives. They would immediately then impeach not just Joe Biden, but Kamala Harris, Vice President Kamala Harris. That way they would remove the president and vice president. The Speaker of the House is third in line in succession, so thus they would make Donald Trump the Speaker. He would then be elevated to president. But wait, Mike Lindell said he's going to be president on August 13th, so which one of you two douche canoes is going to be wrong? Oh, both of you. Like, do you understand this is the Republican Party right now?
Yeah,
and I just can't. I don't know how you vote Republican at this point.
I don't know how you vote for anybody right now.
Really
That's
don't.
the tough part.
I really don't. Jerry Bolton says, because the feds and everyone is giving MyPillow all the evidence. What a more trustworthy person to have all that evidence.
Yeah.
Like, that's the thing that is amazing to me. Mike Lindell, MyPillow, says he's got all the evidence, and he's like said, I'm going to have a press conference on this date and release it all. He's never done.
What the fuck are you, Ranger Rick?
Yeah, like, how are you getting all the evidence, sir? That's the thing that's, you've got all this evidence. Well, how and who? Idiot. Oh, by the way, then there is the Delta variant. So let's get terrified by coronavirus.
Cold-blooded, clean, methodical, and thorough.
So the Delta variant is ravaging the world. And normally I'd be like, well, I'm vaccinated, so I'm not worried about it. And then Israel happened. Israel has 85% of its population vaccinated. It's not really a choice in Israel. 85% vaccinated with the Pfizer vaccine.
So it's a good one.
They're seeing a significant uptick in illness related to the Delta variant in Israel. And while it is a small sect of people, it is rapidly expanding. And so now there is real fear that the Pfizer vaccine does not protect you from the Delta variant. And this is the first variant that we've seen that has actually gotten people sick now. Not like unvaccinated sick. Not like all the idiots who said, vaccines are killing people.
View this the same as the flu.
And then died from not getting vaccine because they got the coronavirus. In June, you realize that almost every single, 99.2% of the deaths in June were from unvaccinated people. That's from the coronavirus. In June, 99.2% of those people were unvaccinated. What's happening is they're getting mild illness. So they're getting, typical headaches, congestion, and a cough. But this is the first variant we've seen that's been able to defeat the Pfizer vaccine. And it's a little scary because I'm vaccinated with the Pfizer vaccine. And so I think, when Israel's talking about going fully back to COVID protocols, mask mandates, I think you have to wear a mask. I just don't think you have a choice anymore. I think it is so dangerous. And by the way, the number 3 state in the U.S. with the most Delta variant cases, the great state of Utah. And one of the least vaccinated states in the U.S., the great state of Utah. And it's a little scary at this point. I think I don't agree with shutting businesses down. I think mask mandates, if you're not wearing a mask right now, and this is our basketball discussion at the gym. I'm not comfortable playing basketball. With knowing the numbers are up in Utah, They went from like 26 cases to 332 cases a day.
Right.
It's scary. And I think that you have to be really careful with this thing.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. I think you have to keep watching the numbers for sure. That's all you really can do.
Yeah, I think you need to put a mask on. Mm-hmm. That's what I would say. I love that we live in a free state like Utah where you can shoot guns and blow shit up, but I'm telling you right now, you should wear a mask. It's that simple.
Yeah.
And finally, the Traeger Ironwood 850.
Right.
Is it 885 or 850? I don't know.
850.
850. Should we tell people how much we spent? No, we probably shouldn't. We went to Barbecue Pit Stop. And I love by the way, it's an 885. You're welcome. We went to Barbecue Pit Stop. It was great. We went to the one in Murray right across from the mall. It was great. Ordered it, had it the next morning, got the tattoo finished, went and picked it up. Took us half an hour to build it. It was not very difficult. And Sunday morning at 6:15, we put a brisket on the Traeger smoker. And it turned out really well. What?
You're saying Traeger.
Traeger. Okay, Traeger. Okay, so there's an argument over this. This is the cool kids club that says Traeger.
Traeger. It's a Traeger.
It's a Traeger smoker. Traeger's great. Traeger smoker. I didn't even pay attention to how I said it. Traeger smoker. Great. I don't even care. It's Tesla and Traeger. It's a Traeger smoker.
Right.
So we put a brisket on the Traeger at 6:15 on Sunday morning for the 4th of July barbecue we had. Everybody was vaccinated. Then at about 12:30, it stalled at 150 degrees. Wrapped it up, knocked it out, let it rest for 90 minutes, pulled it out, and I got to tell you, for my first brisket, I was really happy about
Yeah.
Our first brisket was pretty good.
Yeah.
I was pretty happy with it.
Yeah. For the first one.
Yeah, it was. We could, next time I'll put it in at 4 a.m. The 2 hours would have made a huge difference, I think. But it was nice and wet. Like, it was moist. It kept its fluids really well. It had a nice crust on it. Like, it was really good. I actually did not eat. I had one bite of the brisket. Mm-hmm. And then yesterday for dinner, Monday night for dinner, I had some brisket and some bacon that we also smoked. The bacon was amazing.
Phenomenal.
I don't know how else we smoked that bacon for 5 hours and it was perfect.
Yeah.
It was absolutely perfect.
Bomb.
The brats on the Traeger were
amazing.
Unbelievable.
Dude. Absolutely amazing.
Lance, your friend Lance, smoked peaches.
Yeah, sliced peaches.
On the Traeger, amazing. Really good.
Yep.
The salmon. I don't like salmon, and I loved the salmon. I actually thought we put some jelly on top of it. It was really good.
Yeah.
So your thoughts on the Traeger? What did you think? Again, Ironwood 885 Traeger, what did you think?
Yeah, I thought it was great. I think the app that comes with it really sets it apart.
Yes.
You know, it makes it so that you don't have to constantly be home monitoring it. And I think that, when you build it, the break-in period is kind of cool too. It kind of gives you an appreciation for just how much, how quickly it can move through the pellets at 500 degrees because it will burn them quickly. But then when we were smoking it at a really low temperature, it really didn't move through a lot of pellets. So I thought that was really nice because that's basically where you're going to live with a smoker. You know, you're going to be in the lower temperature range. So I felt like it was awesome. I felt like it was really efficient. I felt like it was very low maintenance. It even comes with a drip bucket, which is really nice so that it's not just dripping on the ground or, you have to use like a piece of Tupperware on the ground or something. It hangs off the smoker. So I think it's a great piece of equipment. It's really good.
I thought the Wi-Fi technology, which means the smoker has Wi-Fi, the app was a game changer. I mean, from recipes to the ability to set a timer in the app, to change the temperature on a timer, to the probe with the temperature like of the meat, and everything was great. The ability to monitor the temperature, the pellet level. Like, there's a light in the pellet bin. Just all of the little accoutrements that you want. That's why again, the Ironwood 885 is not the lowest level. It is one of the highest level at Traeger that you can get, and it was worth every penny of it.
Yeah.
And again, the cooking quality, the super smoke mode was amazing, low and slow. Somebody's asking the temperatures we used, 225 essentially for 10 hours, or 8 hours, excuse me, and then 2 more hours to let it rest in a cooler. We wrapped it in blanket and let it rest in the cooler, and it was great. So 225, we let it stalled at 150. So when the brisket got to 150, we wrapped it in aluminum foil, put it back on the Traeger, and then cooked it up to about 190, and then pulled it off and let it rest. And by the time we pulled it out, it was even at 200, right at 200 when we pulled it out of the blanket. So it was perfect.
Yeah.
It was really, the whole experience was great. And I think
the only other thing I would add is that if you do end up buying a smoker, try to keep it out of the sun while you're using it, because that affected the temps a little bit.
I would agree. It kept the temperature inside the smoker a bit higher because the sun, God, it's just been so hot. The sun was just blazing on that smoker. But the other thing I thought was cool was the community aspect of the smoker. One of our neighbors commented on it. Everybody who came to our barbecue was looking at it and was like, it
lights up the whole backyard.
Yeah,
dude.
it was a cool. Yeah, it was a cool thing. I mean, I really, the back exit, it exhausts out of the back of the smoker instead of the top or the side, so that the heat works in there a little more, which I thought was really smart. I just thought the whole Traeger experience was great. I thought it was worth every penny we paid for it.
Mm-hmm.
Don's Butcher Shop,
yes, dude,
off of Redwood Road.
Highly recommend. I
mean, his brisket was fantastic. We got brisket, brat, and bacon at Don's. Fantastic.
And it's really nice. Like it's a local business. It's a hole in the wall shop, right? It's a standalone right off Redwood. Honestly, like you could miss it driving by. Like we drove by it once. But if you have a smoker, they also carry Traeger supplies. So they have seasoning, pellets, like
Traeger
everything.
Dealer. Yep.
So I mean, it's awesome.
But barbecue pit stop's absolutely the way to go. There's no doubt about it. It like the one in Murray, the guys in Lehigh were really helpful on the phone. We wound up going to the Murray location because it was a lot more convenient based on where my tattoo guy was to pick it up, to bring it home. So that was fantastic. The whole experience was great.
Yeah.
Was absolutely great. Thank God we have a Jeep and not just an Audi, because I'm not sure that box for the Traeger would have fit in the Audi, but we have a Jeep Grand Cherokee as well, and it was perfect.
Yeah.
So
yes.
Yeah, that was really
it was fun.
What are we gonna smoke next?
I think we'll probably go like more fish or chicken. Probably
I really want to get into the vegetable smoking.
Yeah, we have to figure that out too. Like I need to. That's the cool and the fun part about smoking is you have to learn kind of the recipes and figure out like what's what in terms of the food you're cooking. So there's definitely a lot of potential on the vegetable side. Whether it's like zucchinis, asparagus, potatoes. Like there's all kinds you can do. So.
Yeah. By the way, Fat Jesus says he hopes that Mike Lindell brings all the evidence in a pillowcase.
Yeah, that'd be great, man.
Block Rush says no comment on COVID. Sports, please. You're in the wrong show.
Cool.
You're at the wrong show, bro. Jeremy Bolton says we are the most unvaccinated state because we have the highest amount of young people who can't get vaccinated yet, under 12. Driftwood says fear, CNN, mass fear. Okay. And actually, Jeremy Bolton says we are hovering around 60% vaccination rate, which is not good, better than 50%. Yeah. But again, I would remind you, the least vaccinated states are all Republican strongholds in the South and the Great Plains. So, and those also have, by the way, the highest level of COVID cases.
Yeah.
So anyway, play the music.
Okay.
Car detailer's coming.
Yep.
Jake has a car detailer who I'm going to detail the Audi SQ5. So
he'll live up to it.
He better. I will be annoyed if he doesn't. This was one hell of an expensive weekend, by the way.
Yeah.
My God. We'll have a full Game 1 recap of the NBA Finals for you tomorrow morning on the show. Make sure you subscribe so you can win this here Xbox Series S with 120 FPS power.
Frames per second.
All you have to do is subscribe, take a picture that you're subscribed, tag both SLC Supercars and The Monty Show on Twitter and Instagram. Until tomorrow, say Traeger, not Traeger, Jake.
Traeger, not Traeger.